Al, Joe Calix here. How's it going?
Joe, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for answering my questions in advance. The first question I want to ask you is about counter-programming. You've been vocal about your feeling that HBO counter-programs Showtime. And as a fight fan, I've been vocal about it because I don't like HBO and Showtime having fights on the same night. They ask for DVR. But what's your overall stance on counter-programming between HBO and Showtime?
Well, I think common sense tells you that it's going to happen once in a while. There's only so many Saturdays. It's the same reason why, for those of us that make our livings on weekends doing a lot of things, we only have so many opportunities. Inevitably, events that are going to happen are going to coincide no matter what. And that's going to happen sometimes. My issue is that, and people could say, well, you're hardly objective unless you work for Showtime. And maybe I'm not, but I think factually I would be borne out. For the most part, we will have a fight set or have a date that they know it's going to be on, and HBO, this is their right. They have a right to do this. There's nothing that says they can't do it. But I just think we need to look at the facts. 9 out of 10 times they're the ones that counter-program. And it would make sense because they're the ones that think they have the deeper pockets, which they probably do, and they feel that they don't want their turf to be trod on. And they do it. They counter-program what we have, which they have a right to do. But I think we all have to recognize that's a big reason why we get these fights in the same weekends. It will happen sometimes. I just think they make it happen more often than it needs to.
Right, and do you think it has a negative impact on boxing, or do you think it has no impact at all with the invention of DVR?
You made the point that most people that have, but I don't think it's everybody, but most people that have the premium packages probably have DVR, probably, but not or TiVo, whichever, but probably not everybody. So would it be better if there were more cases where they weren't? Possibly, but then we don't worry about that in other sports, do we? We don't worry about it in baseball, football, basketball. At any given time, there could be a number of different games, or college football or whatever, that compete with each other. So I don't know if boxing has to be different. It's just that a lot of times these big fights, people would like it so that they could concentrate on one, and if they don't have DVR or don't have, a way to TiVo it, they'd like to have it. I don't think it's a desperate situation, but I think it's a little annoying, and, I'm just saying, I'm a pretty diplomatic guy, but in this instance, I just think it's mostly HBO's doing.
I agree. Now, going back to the fight Saturday night real quick, with the fight against Joseph Abeko on Saturday night and the previous fight against Vic Darchinyan where there were, numerous fouls, do you think it's fair at this point to question whether Abner Mares is a dirty fighter or not?
I think he's had enough low blows in his last few fights that either his style is such, and I know that he said afterwards, I interviewed him on BoxingChannel.tv, which, by the way, people can go there and see my interview with him or Joseph Abeko at BoxingChannel.tv. But he said, it's because my head was being pulled down, and it still happened several times in that fight. But I don't know if that was enough to make all those punches go low. In fact, I'm sure it wasn't. So and of course, Darchinyan, there was no charges there that he pulled his head down. And Darchinyan's a different style of fighter than Abeko, and he's shorter, so it wouldn't be the case. I think Abner Mares needs to really think about how he can solve this problem. And especially now with all this brouhaha that has happened. I said he would be better served had he had a point taken away in the middle rounds, like they did against Darchinyan. It would have made him very cautious about throwing those. We probably wouldn't have had that 11th round knockdown with the low blow. And I'll tell you something very interesting about that. If you look at the replay, look at where the gloves of Joseph Abeko were. He saw that punch coming, tried to put his gloves down there to block it, and the punch still went below the gloves. So that's a key point. The other key point I want to make, it's not specifically about your question, is the one place where Russell Mora has absolutely no defense is that he said afterwards that all those punches were belt line punches. Well, if they were belt line punches, why did he keep warning Mares to keep him up? So he didn't have a leg to stand on in that case. But is Abner Mares a dirty fighter? I wouldn't go that far, but I would say there's a flaw in his style one way or the other. Or he doesn't care that much if they stray a little low. I don't know. Something's at work here because he's landing a lot of low punches.
Right. And do you think Joseph Abeko and his team should have been more vocal? It seems like...
Yes, I do. And Antonio Carver was the first to make that point, and I agreed with him. He made the point, and it's true. It's just like arguing with an umpire. The reason people argue with umpires is, like, let's say there's an umpire that's giving bad balls and strikes, and sometimes the manager's even willing to get thrown out. He doesn't like to do it, or he designates a coach to do it so he can get thrown out. To make that umpire think twice about it,
Right.
Or if there's a bad call on the bases, you don't want it repeated, and you want it in the back of the mind of the umpire. They didn't do that for a long time in that fight. And I think they waited too long to do it. Now, would it have made a difference? I don't know, but I think it would have also gotten the crowd more stirred up to give more a hard time.
Right. Now, it would have
by the way, the other thing is the great Gil Clancy, my mentor as a boxing person and as a broadcaster, and of course he was one of the great trainers of all time, has said it on many occasions. If a guy keeps hitting my guy low, I tell him the only way to stop it is go back and hit the other guy low. And Jesse Rebecca wasn't even going to the body, period, let alone doing that.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you, too. Becko should have been going low.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, I'm sorry, but after you've been hit 30 times low,
right.
because you're bound to get away with one or two, aren't you?